Welcome back to the Business of Sustainability, the show where we explore real-world changemakers transforming how we live, work and protect our planet. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a visionary leader whose work grows far beyond the soil she tends, from a 21-year career in the Intelligence Corps to founding a flourishing organic smallholding with zero horticultural experience, which is about the same as my level. Our guest journey is as unexpected as it is inspiring. She's the founder and long-term CEO of Tuppenny Barn, an accredited education charity rooted in sustainability, community and green impact, teaching children and adults alike to grow healthy food, care for the environment and reconnect with nature organically. Along the way, she's built a vibrant hub of learning, green therapy and community resilience that nurtures well-being, fosters ecological awareness and empowers people to make sustainable choices every day. I am absolutely delighted to welcome Maggie Haynes. She is a beacon of sustainability, grassroots innovation and community transformation. Maggie, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us today. That is quite an intro as well. Can you just give us a little bit of background and sort of fill out some of the details on that, because it's quite a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So I suppose my career started at 16 when I joined the army. I joined the Intelligence Corps and I was what they called a junior leader. So that was a scheme. I was on the very last scheme actually before defence cuts, and it meant that the aim was to get early leadership at a younger age. So I started at 16, then got my Intelligence Corps training under my belt and went where most theatres are for the army, including 2 tours in Northern Ireland. So, yeah, really interesting. Probably my favourite posting was with the Royal Marines. So
I can imagine it would be many people's favourite.
It was very interesting in that I had the honour to be the first female to be commissioned in my corps, and then when I went to the Royal Marines, the first female to command Royal Marines as an army officer. So it was interesting, and it was all about in that day. So we're talking about the early 90s, counter-terrorism, because the IRA was still a big threat.
There's a lot going on.
So I did 3.5 years with them and went all around the country advising them on security measures. And and I had a small team of Marines who came with me. So it was great. But I left in 1997. I was one of the first women to have a child and be allowed to stay in the army, because in those days, 16 weeks and you're out on your ear if you're pregnant. So I stayed in for 14 months, but decided actually after doing 5 years commission service that I wanted to have another child, and it was really quite difficult being one of the first there. So I left. I did 5 years security consultancy, but felt that by then, having had my daughter, I wanted to do something which was community related. So I spent 3 years looking for a plot of land, and I had this idea, or 2 aims. I wanted to have a project that taught children about the environment, because going back 21 years ago, I definitely felt children were divorced of what was going on outside, where their food came from, and even more so today perhaps. And then also to grow food organically, because where my project is, Southbourne, near to Chichester, there are only 2 other organic businesses then. And sadly today, there are only 2 other organic businesses. It is a tough business to survive. But I eventually found a piece of land, and it was a greenfield site, a hectare, and I started on a basis that I'd never grown anything before. So that was my starting point. But what I wanted to achieve was to have a place where children could come, grow food, and took it from there. I was pretty naive, roasted in glasses, so I have to say. A lot of hard work. But from day one, I always felt that I wanted to do it properly, i.e. the sustainable way. I've always had this desire. It's about looking after our planet, and I suppose having 2 young children by then, it's about their future. And I felt if I could do something and leave a little bit of a legacy. That box was ticked.
That's an amazing story, Maggie. And we're here today to talk about Tuppenny Barn. I think we could probably come back and ask about the bit before Tuppenny Barn and spend quite a lot of time on that. I don't know how much you'd be able to tell us, but it's hugely interesting and incredibly groundbreaking. So really interesting here. And also, before we sort of get in, I think it's very important to mention that you've had a couple of awards this year. You've been doing quite well. Can you just explain a little bit more about what you've received?
Thank you, Alex. So really honoured to be mentioned in the New Year's Honour, to get a BAM for my work at Tuppenny Barn. And actually on Monday I visited, I went up actually to the RHS headquarters in Vincent Square to receive the Charitable Community Award. And that's given to individuals who have done long-term community work, community gardens. So quite unexpected, but quite humbled.
And very much deserved. So we are going to talk about Tuppenny Barn, as I say, today. And if anybody has been lucky enough to visit the barn, if they haven't, they should. There is something very special about what it is and the work that you do. And we've been really lucky as FuturePlus to work with you, I think, for about 18 months now. I think. And to sort of be part of, and even a tiny little part of that has been absolutely wonderful. It is staffed by sort of by a group of very passionate people and by volunteers, and you're delivering education. You are therapeutic horticulture. Can you sort of explain a little bit about how the barn operates and what it is that you're trying to do? Because I think I would try and do it myself, and I have tried to do it to many people, but probably don't do it justice. I sort of described it as an incredibly sustainable place that's open to everybody and provides solace and care and opportunity. But I think you can probably describe it in a much better way.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I suppose, because we do quite a lot, it's quite difficult to kind of succinctly what are our aims. But effectively, sustainability is at the core of all that we do. So we tell people we are a green and ethical charity, and we ensure that we walk the walk. I think that's really important. With all our activities. So we have 3 charitable activities. The first one is about, one of my main aims was about teaching children about food education effectively. So we have, last year it was 1,800 children that came through, and that's on school visits or part of our children's wellbeing projects. That's the green therapy side. So children come to us, and what we try to do is normally about a 4-hour visit. They always get a tour, and we take them around the site. So we call the outside our outdoor classroom. So they'll see we've got about 40 growing beds. We have 2 big polytunnels, a wildlife pond. We have an orchard with 122 trees. And we have a beautiful sustainable education centre. So when they come to us, we always do an activity. We talk to them about growing food, vegetable identification in a gentle way. Because if you take a class of 30 children, 7, 8-year-olds, and you ask them, where do carrots come from? And they'll say Tesco's. And that has been the stock answer all through the last 21 years. A lot of children have got no idea that food is grown in the ground or apples on trees, milk from cows. So we try and educate in a gentle way. And that leads on really to talking about healthy eating. So we will do what we call the fork-to-fork principle. So taking them outside, showing them the vegetables, and then selecting some that they can crop. And then they bring those inside, and we often do cooking with them. So that's the plot to plate. So they can, in their little minds, they can see, actually it's grown in the ground, this is what I'm eating, and healthy eating. So we talk to them in a way that they understand what organic means. And for the youngsters, I will say to them it's being kind to nature, and why we do things organically, and what we have on site to help that. So things like taking them to our great big compost bays, encouraging the teachers, if they haven't got a vegetable garden, and talking about the benefits for the children. And those that do, we talk to them about trying composting and why it's important, what they can compost, what they shouldn't compost. And then going into other areas depending on their age group. So the older ones, we talk to them about climate change, things like biodegradability, about recycling, reusing, but always in a gentle way. And even things like
but also tangible.
Yes, so they can relate to their own lives, because at the end of the visit, what you hope to do is inspire those children to do something in their own lives and talk to them about little measures that they can make. So even if it's about water conservation, in turning taps off, turning lights out, and recycling properly, just in gentle ways. So you're not patronising, but sometimes it's an introduction to that world for some children. Some children, because we prioritise those from the disadvantaged areas, they never eat fresh fruit or vegetables, which is obviously incredibly sad. It's an awful financial climate at the moment. I've never seen it as bad as it is now. And with children, we see the two greatest issues are, one is food poverty and the other is obesity. They're very much interlinked. So we try and do what we can with those topics, because very sadly with obesity, we know that that's linked to childhood cancer. So it's a really important subject. The positive thing is I have seen more of it now, where with the curriculum, with the youngsters, they get it at an early age. So it's our job, I think, to build on that. And we often have repeat visits by schools, so we can go into greater depth with them. With the children's wellbeing projects that we do, those are lovely because we see those particular children regularly. So 3 different types of children's project we do. The longest one is the Sunflower Young Carers. That was started in September 20. Having found out what a young carer was, I didn't know beforehand, and we collaborated with a local high school, which is 5 minutes away from where we are. And during COVID, we did food parcels for 20 families who were referred to us for various issues, and 5 of those families had young carers. And I was quite shocked, actually. This particular school had 740 pupils, and 40 children were young carers. So we thought that we could do something with the children. We had a little bit of money left over from the food parcel scheme. So they started to come to us on a regular basis. We see them now every fortnight. We do it every week to get through. It's the younger ones that we take, and they get an emotional wellbeing session from us. So that's taking them outside every time and doing something relating to the seasons, whether it be actually gardening, because they've got a little raised bed of their own. Sometimes they go out on trips, and it's great because they don't have to tell each other what it means being a young carer. That they have no social life in general, and no confidence or self-esteem, because they're always focused on the person that they're looking after, whether that be a mum or a dad, or it could be because a sibling's got a life-limiting condition. So, yeah, it's a lovely project, and they are lovely children.
I think what's quite extraordinary is it could be very easy from the outside to see we've got and we must talk about the actual building at some stage and how that came to be and what the future for that is as well. But, the idea of we've got some beautiful veg patches and an orchard, and it is absolutely beautiful. And it's such a wonderful environment to be in. It's full of biodiversity. It's suitably wild but productive. You can see how it is. But there is so much that happens in that little space, a relatively little space, that supports so much of the community that otherwise, as you say, kind of gets so massively underserved. You know, I think you also work with veterans, you work with adult groups, mental health groups. So it's sort of a little beacon in the middle of where you are, providing all of this support. And as you say, it touches the economic, the social, the health, the environmental, the sort of the cultural. So many things are happening, just sort of spinning out of the work that you're doing.
Yes, I think it is a very busy place. I think we learned a lot during COVID. That was the first time for a number of years that actually I was able to think, because before then, because we were so small, and we are still fairly small, it's about keeping us afloat. I mean, that was my job, keep the ship from sinking. It is so hard being a charity these days, and I don't know if you're aware that the Charity Commission came out with the fact last year that 70% of charities in this country are in a deficit, which is quite shocking considering kind of what this country is and the money that is around.
The difficulties that we're, that are currently having at the moment.
Absolutely. So it is a really challenging time. But amongst that, I feel that it's really important to focus on the positive. So from COVID, we decided to ditch any activities that we did which were revenue generating but weren't perhaps aligned to our charitable activities. So having weddings and things like that. So we decided we wanted to do more on a charity basis, and that's really where the green therapy programs came about. Apart from actually we were already doing horticultural therapy. We started a project 9 years ago. And for anybody who doesn't know what horticultural therapy is, it effectively for either children or adults, and it's gardening, but providing people with well-being. So helping them if they've got a health condition, particularly mental health issues. It might be that somebody is socially isolated or physically disabled. By reaching out and working in nature. There's been so many studies now over the last 10 years giving proper scientific evidence of the benefits of gardening. And even myself, I mean, I don't garden like I used to in the project because of time, but I know when I get outside, I just feel so much better. And it's open to anyone. The 6 green therapy projects that we do at Tuppenny Barn, so we've got 3 children, so young carers is one of them. And with the adults, the first one we undertook, a project called Nurture Nature, and that is vulnerable adults within the local community who've been referred to us because they've got mild to moderate health issues or socially isolated. And they come to us and they garden on a Friday. We do 2 sessions, maximum of 8 in each session. We have 2 practitioners, so that's people who are qualified to run a group. And really the therapy happens when they're out gardening. Sometimes when you want to talk to somebody but don't want to look them in the face, it's easier to talk when you've got your hands in the soil.
Yes, it's like teenage boys in a car. If you're ever going to speak to a boy, a teenage boy, so I speak to my sons, I'll take them for a drive because it's so much easier.
It is, and that's actually where the therapy happens. So we do that, and it's been really successful. So we have referrals from the NHS side, so GPs, there might be social prescribers. And you mentioned about we recently started a veterans initiative. So I suppose it was my personal way of giving back to the military arena. I looked in 2023 to see what was out there for female veterans who were considered vulnerable for various reasons. Quite a lot of them through sexual trauma and things that happened during their time served. And there were 6 projects countrywide, which I thought was not great.
It's on the low end of the scale, isn't it?
It definitely was. So I felt that we had a facility and one of the things that I suppose I've most enjoyed at Tuppenny, for me personally, is growing cut flowers. From a little girl, I used to like going to pick flowers with my father, and going out and primroses. Though that's not the right thing to do these days. However, I've always enjoyed that, and from an early stage in the project, we have grown cut flowers. I decided probably about 6-7 years ago I wanted to go on an intensive flower farming course. An amazing lady down in Somerset, Georgie Newbury, she's probably the leading light in cut flowers in this country, very generous with her knowledge, and I was on her very first call. So I spent 3 days learning a little bit more about growing flowers and the commercial side, how to make a little bit of money out of them, which is important for a charity.
Yeah, I was going to say, absolutely. It's all got to make,
yes.
That circle's got to circle.
Yeah, and with flowers, they have a language of their own, and if you give flowers as a thank you, or if somebody's had a bereavement or a birthday, it says something, and I thought that would be a good thing. So we decided to set up a green therapy. We called it Veterans Bloom, and we teach our veterans the skills of growing cut flowers, so they can do that, a skill, but more importantly, bringing them together so they had that social interaction. They're all veterans, so they got something in common. And there were questions from some of my male counterpart, why not female? And I've just explained what we were trying to achieve. And it was interesting, after the first pilot that we ran in 2024 for 8 weeks, we got money from Southern Co-op to run it. So I asked the community manager there to come and present certificates at the end of their 8 weeks. And she was asking them about it, and they said they felt it was a safe space, that they could talk about things. So I thought it was the right thing to make it an all female group. So we've gone on to do 4 courses, and everything that we do, we have to get funding. There is no statutory funding for any of the work that we do. So that's a hard part of the charity. We have to go out to trust foundations, any grants. Sometimes we do get money from individuals, but predominantly it's trusts and foundations. So it's getting the money.
I imagine a full-time job unto itself, writing grant applications. Absolutely. And the reporting and the follow-ups.
And it's never been harder. Some of that's to do with AI, where little charities have cottoned onto it and kind of flooding applications to small trusts and foundations, and they're finding it difficult. And we're finding the funding is shrinking, shorter deadlines, and more people asking for money because of the financial situation everybody's in. So you have to be at the top of your game for that. So we have had a little bit of a lull in Veterans Bloom, but what we did do, we always do evaluation of all the courses that we run, or the sessions, to basically find out, are we doing the right thing? Do we need to tweak it? And actually, is it fulfilling the need that is out there? So with the veterans, in the period where we didn't run any courses, we had them all back in. And it was interesting what they had to say, how much the courses had meant to them, and what they wanted actually was some regularly. So we were able to get funding for 9 months for this year for them to come once a week. So it was really good. So we have the money from the Armed Forces Covenant. So they are coming now every week, and really getting their skill set. They know a lot more than they did. So some of them have been to all of our courses, and some of them are amazing. So there is one lady, she comes all the way from Gosport. So she gets a bus from Gosport to the Hard.
To explain where Gosport is to those outside, it's essentially a peninsula off a peninsula, and probably best described as a cul-de-sac of Hampshire, which is absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend that people go and visit and see everything there is there. But it is not the easiest place to travel in or out of. It is one way in, one way out,
Absolutely.
Or a ferry.
Yes, well, that's what she does. She gets the bus to the Hard, gets the ferry across, and then gets a a bus from Portsmouth Hard. So her whole journey probably takes her 2.5 hours. But she said in an email to me recently that it's been a lifeline. And she's quite quiet, but it's lovely to know that it's making a difference in her life. One of them, the ladies who comes, she's in a wheelchair, and that was great for us because it was our first regular person in a wheelchair, and I wanted her to try out kind of our proper accessibility, so lived experience, and she said that it had given her the confidence to do a lot more in her life. Because everybody encouraging her. She had still has lots of health issues, but it's great to see her, and she's so enthusiastic, and that's the type of thing that gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. Every time I speak with you or hear more about the stories that come out of Tuppenny Barn, it always just, it just resonates so strongly. And I think what's really impressive about how you run it is it is so welcoming, it's impacting so many people, but that is very fundamental to how you make decisions. You've made brave decisions around, reducing revenue around weddings, but you also make sure that every project that you run has the impact that you intend. So whilst it's very lovely, it is run very seriously.
Yeah. It's really important because we get lots of requests, but it's important that we stick to our charitable activities and make sure that what we do is relevant, and I think it's important to ask ourselves, is it making a difference? Because that's what we want to do. And going back to sustainability, I feel that the job of Tuppenny Barn is to educate people in a gentle way. And to see for themselves. So we have the community in. We offer what we call a tea and a tour. So it's predominantly groups like the WI or horticulture groups, and they will come and we'll give them a tour. Then they get a cream tea on vintage china with our jams. But we show them so they can see for themselves how things are done, and perhaps take ideas away of how they might translate that into their own lives, and trying to show them that it is possible. And for me personally, I always feel it's from the ground up if you want to get things done, because if you wait for those on high, you wait forever.
Yeah, sometimes it just needs to happen.
Yes.
And the sort of the central point or the foundation is the actual barn.
Yeah.
To everything you do. So it's a wonderful building. But can you just give us a bit of information about the actual building itself? Because I think that unto itself.
It is a very special building. So actually it came about because of the need for shelter. So from 2005 to 2008, there was no shelter at all. So we have an old barn. Best to describe it, it's got built with asbestos, 1960s, and it's pretty ugly, and no kind of insulation. So in the winter, it's colder in the barn than out, and in the summer, it's pretty hot. So that's all we had for shelter. And by 2007, I got my first employee, a lovely girl called Becca. And I began to feel actually I got a duty of care. So we were outside in all weathers, looking like Mrs. Michelin when it's like -2, a competition who could wear the most layers. And we felt actually 2008 we had the financial crash, and it was a bit of a crossroads because I felt we needed to bring more money onto the project. It was never going to survive because you don't get much profit from a cucumber or a lettuce. We needed an all year round weatherproof building because up until that stage, school visit only could happen when the weather was okay. It wasn't safe to have them in the barn because of all the tools there. So we decided what we need was a building. Because we're a green and ethical charity, we felt that it had to be built in aligning with our values, and so an environmentally built with using best practice. So we found a great building designer, not an architect, who came up with this circular building, strawbale build with a timber frame. And we told him that he said, come with your blue sky thinking, what would you like this building to do? So we went, so we said we needed toilets. That was practical. Up until then, we didn't have proper toilets.
Sometimes it's the most basic of things which makes the biggest difference.
And we wanted to have a shop in a proper building. So up until then, year 2, we started with a yurt, and then Mark 2 was a porter cabin, but we wanted something a bit nicer. And we needed a kitchen to do the fork-to-fork principle with the children, and offices. So, that was the basic wish list, but also the ability to run workshops and to be a beautiful building. I think that's important, because all the building, whatever I did outside, I think it was really key to make sure it's aesthetically pleasing. I'm a girly, so I like things to look nice.
There was a brilliant article a couple of years ago, which I am always trying to find again, that talked about how how beauty is sustainable. Because if you build something beautiful, you want to look after it, and it has resilience, and you have a responsibility around it. And sometimes building pure efficiency into things means that they feel less loved, and we tend to throw things away quite easily. And actually, sometimes beauty is that is a really interesting part of sustainability, which is always left out of the conversation, but particularly around architecture and buildings and functions that we are in and around. It can be so important to want to be somewhere.
I think that's incredibly true, and I felt that it would have to be a beautiful building.
And it is.
Yeah, in keeping. So what happened from there was we agreed that we would go ahead, albeit we didn't have any money to build it, but we had the promise of one grant from the Chichester Harbour Conservancy, who've been fantastic actually over the years. So they saw what we were doing with the children and said that they would give us $5,000 from their sustainability fund. But we had to have it done by a particular, to start it by a particular time. We had to wait over a year for planning permission because we were not supported by the local parish council. And that was another story about itself. But eventually, when we got it, I had to stand up in front of the chief planning officer and explain why we were doing it and the benefits to the local community. That then there were no objections. It was sad because I did talk to them about, in those early days, the benefits of sustainability and having a green building. I was just told that nobody would be interested. So things have changed, but I'm definitely one. I'm not easily beaten. and
I think there's been a few examples throughout your story. Absolutely.
So we started, so we did get our $5,000 from the Harbour Conservancy, and then we had a grant from the District Council for $25,000. Then, so it gave me confidence about what we were doing. However, there was only a few staff in those days, and I had to do the fundraising after the day job. So it did take 6 years to finish, albeit we were in the building by year 2 with bare strawbale walls, and we just let things happen around us. But we were determined to get it finished. It cost just over 400,000, which is quite a sizable sum to kind of raise, but
on Grand Designs, it would have been 1.4 million and 15 years. So I think you did a really good job.
So it is circular. People say it's got a good energy. So inside, it does look a little bit like a yurt with the glue lamps. We've got 86 of those. We have 28,000 red cedar shingles on the roof. We have metal guttering as opposed to plastic, and actually we made the conscious decision to have as least plastic as possible, and also things like cement because it's so energy consumptive. So there's only a small amount where the steel posts went, and we've got underfloor heating with the flooring being marmoleum, so that's plant-based, and an air source heat pump. So it is a beautiful building, and it gets used all the time. It's open for hire, but you mentioned about beauty and looking after it. are quite protective. So for private hire, just to tell people, we give them the keys, but you will look after it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's got lime render walls, which is great. The downside of that, it chips quite easily, so we've had to kind of get it painted several times, when actually we're fundraising at the moment to try and get the outside redone, because we are near the coast, and
Harsh weather.
Yeah, harsh weather.
And getting harsher.
Yes, yeah, definitely with that. So yes, it is a beautiful building. It's also great to teach the children. So when we talk to them about sustainable, we can show them. And it's quite funny because it's actually built on car tyres, so 3 high, filled with scalpings and shingles. And you tell the children, you know, what do you think is underneath where they're standing? When you tell them it's car tyre, they don't believe you, or they don't believe you that it's built of straw. Yeah. So we have a little square.
I know a story about that.
Yeah. And so it's good to be able to show them and to explain what a sustainable, in an eco-type building is built of, and how it's actually quite good for your health in comparison with normal builds.
Again, so it's just covering so many different conversations and education pieces. And you are currently fundraising, I believe, for a new building.
Yes.
So just in case there's somebody listening that this story sort of lands with them as much as it does with us. Can you explain a little bit about the fundraising and what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so a project called Transforming Tuppenny, and that's what we hope it's going to do. So we've got to the stage now where we're full up with school visits. We need more space in the diary. The reason being, we have a shop on a Thursday and a Saturday morning, so that effectively takes 2 days out of the calendar where we could be having school visits. So we've decided, actually after COVID, because during COVID, when that hit, we lost 80% of the income overnight. So it's about financial sustainability longer term, but also having the shop in a permanent shop, because at the moment we have a lovely shop, but it's effectively a pop-up. So if we have any other events, we have to clear it all away. So that's not great use of our time. And we felt that if we were going to have a shop outside, obviously it had to be a green build, and we were going to have a cafe. More importantly, it has a social purpose. So because we now have access to agencies who support, or charities, vulnerable adults or young people, we want to be able to have young people, adults of that category, and teach them the skills of working in a shop or a cafe. I don't know if you're aware that people of that category, having looked at recent studies, they say 3 to 4% in this country of that category have got meaningful employment, which is, again, very shocking. So we feel that by building a cafe and a shop and having that training facility, we are able to facilitate something which is needed in our area. We have got a couple of other charities who do something similar, not really though with an outdoor classroom growing. So the idea would be with the cafe to grow the food that's going to be eaten in the cafe, and with the shop permanent, so which is music to my ears. So we are only just over halfway through. Again, because of the financial climate, very difficult to raise funds. So if there is anybody out there, we'd be delighted to talk to them. We're looking for corporate sponsorship or any ideas of how we can raise funds. So we've got 340,000 to go. That is going to be my mission. I'm stepping down this year as CEO, but I've said I will continue on the fundraising side, because I know we need that building sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. There must be somebody out there. There must be a corporate with relatively deep pockets that would love to work with the barn. So we will make sure that we share all of the information. But yes, highly recommend doing that. We met, as I said, a couple of years ago. We run an SME sustainability accelerator with Chichester District Council, which is absolutely brilliant for us. We get to meet so many brilliant businesses. And actually, I was both Polly, our CEO, and I were down over the last couple of weeks, actually knocking on doors and going and speaking to people. And there's just such an amazing array of businesses down in Chichester. It's a really thriving area, and it's brilliant to work with the District Council as well, supporting businesses that are trying to understand what sustainability looks like to them, or progressing what that looks like. What I will say is, Tuppenny Barn and what you have built, it is a foundational to everything that you have done, and we have absolutely loved working with you. But I suppose a very blunt question to you would be: is how have you found working with FuturePlus in as much as you do so much already? Have we been able to sort of add into that and provide additional benefit to how you're doing and what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think when we were invited to be one of the first businesses, when the District Council said what was happening, I was really excited because I always feel that you can always improve on what you do. And although we are a green and ethical charity, I think it's about looking at what we do. Could we do it any better? So for me and for the staff, I told them the journey that we were going to go, and we're going to relook at every aspect, and we did that, and actually it made us perhaps review some of the things that we are doing. Some of the things, so for example, are waste. So we don't take anything off site on the kind of weeds or anything like that. We turn it into eventually soil that can be donated actually to schools. That's one of the things that we do, or we use it on site. But our own waste. So myself and my deputy, we looked, and actually we felt that we could improve on recycling. One of the big things was with our beneficiaries was to get the message to them that if they came to us, if they brought, because we're not keen on single-use plastic or anything similar, they were to take it home with them because we weren't going to have it on site. And to get that message, and when you're dealing with vulnerable adults or youngsters, it's to do it in a gentle way, but explain. I think that's important, that education behind it, and then to look at our own, what we produced and could we reduce that. We do obviously lots of composting, but it was looking at other areas and what could be recycled and where could you, like batteries and the local facilities. So it was really good, and so we're better than we were.
I remember a wonderful conversation with your deputy at the time, who was who put so much structure around it. She was like, "We've always sort of done it, but now we've got the structure," and had just the most brilliant conversation. And it's so lovely to be able to be a little bit of a part of your story and what you're doing, and to continue to increase the enthusiasm around actually making it something that's practical and you can put in place and works. As you say, you don't have a huge staff.
No.
There's lots of there are volunteers, but
Yes.
actually, and you are working with the groups of people, as you say, that you've got to make it very, you've got to make it understandable and clear and sensible.
Yes, and why we do things,
at
and
each level.
the fact that we've not got a chemical on site, and why we do make some of our own eco cleaning materials, and encouraging others to do so. And I suppose one of the things that we did in COVID was we made our own sanitizers, in that a gentle one, because if you went out, and it was such a difficult time for everybody, but the dreadful sanitizers which smelt like petrol on your hands, and seeing the rawness of some people's hand because of the jobs that they did. So one of the staff, who's actually an author and great at making products, that's what she does now for us, she came up with our own hand sanitizer of gentle ingredients, but they had things like tea tree and lavender, so antibacterial, and all that was needed, and lovely for your hands. And because we were nearly going to go down that rabbit hole to begin with, because everybody was quite frightened about what's happening, and everybody was saying, to use this and mostly chemical based, but that's not who we were. And I just thought about it and think, actually, let's try and do it in the way that we normally do, meeting the standard, but doing it in a green, environmentally friendly way, and to continue that. And when we've been inspected by people in the past and they asked to see the chemical and trying to tell them, actually, that there are other ways of doing it to meet the standard. I had an inspection from somebody on the environmental health side and about our mixed salad bags, and telling me that I needed to wash the salad leaves. And I said, well, what do you think we should be washing them? And he talked about it was like a chemical wash, and not really understanding what we were all about. So yeah,
a lot of education at all levels.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose one of the other positives on when we went through the sustainability boot camp was to look at what we were doing with our local business suppliers and what they did, and to really actually check how they were making things, where they came from. And within the office, I think the staff hated me for it, in that when we buy something, just to actually say, where does it come from? How is it made? That supply chain, we don't use any of the big platforms. I think we're quite proud of that, because it's very easy to do that, but to support local businesses, because keeping the pound local is so important. 70% of every pound, if you spend your money locally, goes back to the local economy in comparison to the big supermarkets or the equivalent. So we are really very keen to do that. And sometimes it's difficult, it's more expensive, but the outcomes, I think, are better.
Absolutely. I was going to ask one last question. Although I could carry on this conversation all day, the Accelerator's theme this year is around adaptation and resilience, and I think this has been a masterclass actually over our entire conversation. So I'm not going to ask you about what that looks like necessarily for the Tuppenny Barn, because I think we've really covered that. But do you have any words of wisdom for other businesses that maybe aren't as far down this pathway, or haven't had it as a foundation as you have had, to take away from all of the challenges and the opportunities that the barn has had into what they can bring into their business?
I definitely would encourage any company that hasn't gone down the sustainability route to think about it seriously, because actually looking just purely on a commercial basis, the general public are looking at companies more so under the microscope. What do they do? What are they giving back to the community? So the community element, I think, is so important. So we do corporate social responsibility and encourage people to come to us, but it's very much a two-way thing. So companies can feel like they're contributing to their local communities, getting involved there, as well as we as a charity to see what we can do for the companies in return. And I think companies, the community aspect, I think, is huge. And I think if you can show on your annual report what you've done within the local community, I think that's a really important element. And for the staff, I know the staff that we have on site, lots of them don't see each other regularly, or sometimes not at all, and bringing them to a green space and getting them to do something collectively. And staff, I think they like to give back. In general, I think, we as humans, in general, most people like to do it. It makes you feel good if you're able to do something. So staff well-being. So I will definitely actively encourage anybody who's thinking about it just to give it a go.
What a brilliant note to finish on. Thank you, Maggie. I have absolutely loved having this conversation, and hopefully someone out there does have some deep pockets, and we can get that 340,000 covered. Who knows? You never know. You've got to keep fingers crossed and keep positive. But it's been wonderful working with you and the team at Tuppenny Barn, and look forward to bigger and better things. And good luck for the rest of this year with all of the future awards that I think you're going to sweep up.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maggie. If you would like to find out more about Tuppenny Barn, you can find the details in the link below. And if you'd like to find out more about FuturePlus, you can, as ever, find us at www.future-plus.co.uk. Thank you for listening.